Thor: The Dark World is an amazing Marvel movie, everybody. I'm just screwing with you. It's so bad, it's not even good. Roll the intro. Let's go. Come on. It's a great day on the internet, everybody. Matt here from Assemble. Thank you so much for joining us today. Very fun, exciting unboxing and review. We are unboxing and reviewing the Thor statue from Marvel's Infinity War from Diamond Select Toys. Now, I'm very happy about this because I am a huge Marvel fan, as you guys all know, and can look around me and can see that. But also, I am a huge Thor fan when it comes to how Thor as a character within the Marvel Cinematic Universe really evolved. We came from those initial movies of Thor: The Dark World, and I gotta be honest, from the original movies from Thor to even Avengers 1, I really wasn't feeling like Thor was standing out as that main primary character. I felt like, okay, I give him a Thor movie. I've never really been big into Thor as it comes to the comic books. Characters like Thor and Hulk, I can never really get into. The whole god, mystical powers, that kind of stuff. I really was never into that very much. I always kind of liked my superheroes a little bit more grounded. But as Thor evolved and Chris Hemsworth's depiction of Thor evolved throughout the movies and over this entire span of the MCU, I really started to fall in love with the character. I started to empathize and sympathize with Thor for everything that he was going through, because we were starting to figure out a lot of his backstory, a lot of things to do with his family. And as you saw him develop and go through everything in Infinity War, you could argue that Thor is and was one of the main cornerstone pieces of the MCU, especially in that movie specifically. His vengeance, his drive to try and basically save the Avengers and save the universe itself, things really were looking bleak until Thor came around and actually started helping. So I'm really excited that we are going to unbox this one today. By the way, if you are new to the show, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing as well. And yeah, I said it. Subscribe. Hit the bell thing. You tap it and you get updates on the videos that we're doing, like the Thor statue right now, or the Spider-Man one we just did, which was an amazing statue to unveil. So like, share, post this thing. Check us out every single week, because we're covering Marvel, DC, TMNT, Transformers, and more every single week. And I'd love to be able to talk to you, the best friends, the best community that's out there. And I hope that you guys would assemble with us so you can see all of the content that we're running all the time. So let's dive in. So as we look at Thor and this statue from Diamond Select Toys, first impressions, everybody, huge fan. My first glance and first unboxing of this and seeing it rotate around, my first overall impressions are wow. Getting this statue, I was just like, this is crazy. The price came in at about $100 Canadian for this Thor statue, which for the size and scope of this, I think you're getting an amazing value coming out of this. Looking at Thor and how they drew him, looking at Thor and kind of taking it all in at first glance, the pieces that stand out the most to this are obviously going to be all of the lightning surrounding Thor. Everything was embedded, folks. So I didn't have to put anything together. This was all one solid piece that we didn't even have to touch. Looking at Thor's axe, I can really say that they did a great job of actually making this thing seem very prominent within this statue. And what I mean is that the head of Thor's axe is really, really big. You've got the wooden handle going across, which is amazing. You have the lightning bolts going throughout. It wasn't that they just colored it, but they actually took the time to really put in the extra detail when it came to the lightning, when it came to the axe itself. Now, if we start taking a look at Thor's head and his face and the sculpting of this is tying into Infinity War and Chris Hemsworth's depiction of Thor. So we got to keep that in mind of how they put this together. Now for Diamond Select Toys, sometimes they're really good at this, and sometimes it can be a little bit missed when it comes to the actual face and sculpting of the figures. What I really appreciate is how well they got the attention to detail when it came to Thor's beard, as well as his haircut. I think they really came across very well. Here's my one criticism of this statue, and if I could point it out right away, we'll get it over with, everybody. It's going to be the eyes. I get what they were going for. I understand that they're trying to give Thor the look of like him summoning all of the lightning to him, to his arsenal, and having that huge moment where he's, remember when he's going to actually be going and throwing the axe down and hitting everybody on the ground. You have that kind of movie moment. So I understand they want that look of Thor having all of that blue shooting through his eyes. In this depiction, it just comes off as a little kind of plain and generic. We have a light blue that is the exact same tone as the lightning bolts, which is good. But you have his clear white eyes, which again, if he's summoning all of the lightning power to him, then that is accurate. I just feel like they could have done a little bit more to actually bring it to life a little bit, because I don't feel that the eyes actually stand out all that much. If I'm gonna look at paint overall, guys, and we just focus on the head, I'm gonna give it about a 7 out of 10. And the reason why is because, one, the eyes and the coloring of the blue, I thought there could be more detail, like I said. You have a little bit that goes above his eyebrow, which is either on purpose or is a mistake, but it looks to be more like it was on purpose and deliberate. But when I look around and go around and look at all the paint around him, you got a little bit of splottiness when it comes to, like, I see a little bit of brown paint on his ear, and some around the back of his head is spilling down a little bit. So not too many problems there, but again, yeah, 7 out of 10 when it comes to Thor's head, which is kind of a funny thing to say to somebody and give Thor's head a 7. Next up, let's look at the entire body overall and the sculpting of this and the whole stance for Thor. Now, if I'm gonna look at the front of Thor and his costume, I think they did actually quite a commendable job. They did a really good job of getting his actual armor, his suit on the front here. You got good detail when it comes to his pant legs, as well as his boots. And again, no real issues when it comes to the paint. You got nice little hinges, and you got a little bit of detail around the edge of the boot, which is nice to see. His biceps, you're seeing the actual strong muscles of Thor. And as Drax likes to point out, he is a beautiful man. And you can look at all of the detail around Thor. And again, if we look at the biceps, we look at the arms of Thor, you can see that he's got the lightning shooting all the way around. There's a little bit of lightning crystals too that are popping up, which is really, really nice. And you've got him in that nice strong stance where he's got the fist coming out and holding the axe in the other hand. And if I could go back for a second and talk about the axe, I like that they have the wood stem, the handle of the axe. It's wrapped around very nicely. It looks like it's got a little bit of worn damage to it, which is really, really good. And again, the overall depiction of Thor in this, I think they just did a really great job, and I think it's amazing value. His cape right here, it's a little bit more cut up and shredded, which is really good because it's really true to that of the movie. You get a more rubberized texture when it comes to the cape. It's got a little bit of mobility. You can move it a little bit. It's not gonna go anywhere, but it's definitely not gonna snap off or anything like that. It does blend in nicely, and they did have it actually just kind of attached to the back of Thor, which actually does blend in quite well. Now then we get onto the base. And sometimes when we look at the base of these figures, everybody, they can be hit and miss. Because sometimes they're a little bit too plain and they're generic, and sometimes they're really, really fantastic, they stand out. Our last review where we did the Spider-Man, and before that we did the Batman animated series statue, you can kind of see the shift in difference in quality. Yes, different companies, yes, different figures, yes, different universes, but just looking at how they come together and they build them overall and construct them. You can see where there's a lot of good attention to detail and where they're trying, even within the limited budget that they may have to put towards some of these statues. The Batman animated series one, I felt that came off as very cheap because it was a little bit more of that hard plastic, and the lightning bolt, similar to this though, the lightning was very, very hard plastic, and it was really hard to even put in when it came to the Batman figure. When we look at Thor and it's one solid piece already put together, yeah, it's a huge box to put together, as you guys can see. But you're getting a nice, well-crafted statue, and the base for Thor, you're getting its really good stance on him. And again, because it's all molded into the base, there's really no issues. Nothing's gonna fall out, break apart. I mean, you really get a good solid weight to him, and you're not worried about this thing chipping or damaging. And they gave Thor enough of a stance and a wide enough base to stand on so you don't feel it's flimsy, nothing's gonna tip over. He's sitting on a little bit of rock and shrapnel. So it looks really good. You got a little bit of that orange and yellow paint that they've kind of mixed into the bottom to give it a little bit more contrast, because we're dealing with some grays and some blacks when it comes to Thor. So overall, the color palette turned out pretty well. If we were to rate the base of this statue, let me know in the comments below, what do you guys think? Would you rate this more of like 6 to 7, 8, 9 out of 10? What do you guys think? I find it's kind of right there in the middle. I'd be looking at this at, again, around a 7, 7.5 if we're gonna start rating things a little bit. But let me know what you think. Now, what are your overall impressions, everybody, if you are looking at Thor and the overall sculpting of this? For me, I'm really, really happy with how this turned out. This is definitely a keep, and this is definitely something I would put on the shelf. This guy is going right up there with Spider-Man for me. And what's crazy is that the value and the price difference too. The Spider-Man statue that we did in our last review, and go check that out, guys, if you can. I was absolutely floored with it. I love it so much. It's sitting right behind me over here on the very top shelf. I absolutely love it, but I have a very soft spot when it comes to Spider-Man. I don't when it comes to Thor as much, but again, going back to my earlier point, we saw Thor evolve in the MCU. I started to become more attached to him. I started to care a lot more. And that's what I always find hard when it comes to MCU versus DC movies. And again, it's a whole other conversation outside of this video. You can see how we have so much investment over years with these characters. And that's what makes us fall in love with them so much, is that we've seen them go through highs and lows, and we've seen Thor specifically go through those highs and lows and development as a character as a whole. In Infinity War, I felt like it was kind of almost that climax of it, and we saw that downturn and that downward spiral in Endgame, and then the resurgence towards the end. So I absolutely love this. This statue is gonna be up there quite high on the list for me when I compare it to that, my Spider-Man, as well as the Transformers G1 that I got of Optimus Prime. But when I look at this, I find that it sits very well with the Spider-Man statue that I got from Diamond Select. The quality on the Spider-Man is a little bit higher than that of Thor, and it's strictly dealing with, we're running into almost over $100 price difference between these two figures. But if you are looking for a Thor statue, something to add to your collection and put on that shelf, 1, this stands out very well. 2, it's got a lot of contrasting colors and dynamics, the pose to it. And 3, if you like Infinity War, then I do feel that this is a big, big get. Folks, if you can, go ahead and follow us at assemble_show and talk to us on Twitter, because I want to be able to engage with you and the best community that is out there on the internet today, because we're always talking about not only Marvel and DC, but we're talking video games, we're talking movies, we're talking about what's streaming on Twitch right now. So come on, engage with us, talk to us online, and let's grow this thing and make it as big as we possibly can. So guys, if I was gonna give this any criticism really and give it any knockings on the point scale, it's gonna be the detail within Thor's eyes. I thought that they could do a lot more when it comes to the face sculpting, but we gotta remember that for about $100 for the figure, I can't really go wrong and I can't really beat that. The base itself too, I wasn't really keen on. I like how it is nice and big and that it really fits Thor prominently, but I don't like how it doesn't have a ton of detail. We've done really early videos where I have like a Magneto review, and the Magneto statue was $60, but it gave you a ton of detail with the rubble and the base. It was just designed differently. So I feel like they could have done a little bit more to beef this up, to give you a lot more detail. Maybe some guys, some villains that are actually broken up. This really does highlight Thor. It highlights Thor and the axe, and it's a really great piece to add to your MCU collection. If you're an MCU fan, if you love the Marvel movies, then I definitely recommend that you guys pick this up. Thank you so much for joining us this week on Assemble. If you can, like, share, subscribe to the channel. Let's keep this thing growing. We're having fun every single week here with you, the best friends and the best community on the internet. Next week, we are going to review the G1 Optimus Prime statue. That is from Sideshow Collectibles. That one is on the top of the list. It's a beautiful figure and a beautiful piece. I can't wait to review it with you. Until next time, thank you so much for assembling with us today. See ya.